What is happening, Miami Dolphins fans? It's Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network. Good to be back home. If you've been watching my free agency videos so far over the last couple of days, you'll notice I'm no longer in a hotel. So, yes, it is good to be home, but obviously traveling got me a little bit behind on some of the latest signings. So, that's one of the things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about some of the guys I haven't been able to hit on yet, but then I want to do a little bit of a what's next. What else can we expect? What positions maybe are the Dolphins still going to target in free agency? Maybe a couple of guys that they've got their eye on. So that's what we're going to hit on today. Before I dive into that, though, I want to hear from you as always. What's your thoughts on Dolphins free agency so far? The signings we've made, the players we've lost. Who do you want to see next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And get subscribed if you haven't done so already. Appreciate all you guys that have already done it. You'll see I've got a lot of the moves all there going on the bottom as well. Some of them I don't have contract numbers for yet, so we just put contract TBD, but we'll get to those soon enough. Some of the latest signings that I haven't gotten around to in the video, I'm going to rattle them off, and then I'll do a quick breakdown on some of them as well. Salvon, Ahmed, and Robert Jones both re-signed. Two former Buffalo Bills. That's a fun ad right there. Two former Buffalo Bill defensive backs, Jordyn Poyer, Siran Neal were added. Then most recently as well, Neville Gallimore was signed as well. Salvon Ahmed, like I said, real quick, Salvon Ahmed, we know everything about him right now. I think he's entering year 5 with the Dolphins. He's likely going to find himself in a camp battle for the final running back roster spot, which he's been doing the last 4 or 5 years on this team. Robert Jones, he's probably in a battling for either a starting spot or a backup role on the interior offensive line, depending on how the remainder of free agency goes, how the draft ends up going as well. And then on Wednesday evening, we learned about Gallimore, who was a former third-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys in 2020. Hasn't quite lived up to the potential and what the Dallas Cowboys had envisioned when they selected him in the third round. Made 9 starts as a rookie, but then just 5 starts combined the last 3 years. He's got only 4 career sacks. He did have a career best 33 tackles in 2022. But kind of going back to what we've seen on the defensive line so far from the Dolphins in free agency by letting Wilkins go, by letting Raekwon Davis walk, we're loading up on guys that haven't really produced much so far during their time in the NFL. And if we don't make any splash signings yet during free agency, recording this, a guy like Armstead still available, all these guys that we brought in so far, they're just going to battle it out in camp. But what it also does is it makes adding an interior defensive lineman an intriguing option at some point in one of the first 2 rounds of the 2024 NFL draft as well. And we'll definitely talk more interior defensive lineman draft options as we transition from free agency to the NFL draft. But right now it's Zach Sealer, and it's a bunch of guys that we're hoping still have their best football remaining ahead of them at this point in time. As for the 2 Buffalo Bills defensive backs, Poyer is a nice add to play opposite Javon Holland. He is turning 33 in April. So, yeah, we're getting the tail end of his career. But he's a solidified veteran. You know what you're getting with him. He's got a good history of making big, impactful plays, both as a tackler in the run game and then in pass coverage as well. I don't rule out the Miami Dolphins adding another safety in free agency or in the draft as well. You've seen some talk likely out there of new defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver potentially using some 3 safety packages. So maybe you get 3 guys out there all at the same time. Regardless, we need more depth as well. So maybe a guy like Deshaun Elliott resigns. But regardless, I don't think we're completely done adding at safety as well. Neal from the Bills, he's labeled as a special teams ace, which is good because our special teams needs about as much help as it can get. However, based on what I already know about him and then what I've read about him as well, special teams is about the extent as to where you want to see him on the field as well. He'll be seen as a reserve defensive back for the Dolphins. But like I said, we need Cam Smith mainly. We need Cam Smith. We need Cater Kohu. We need Nick Needham. Basically, any of the defensive backs that we see on the field, we need those guys getting the meaningful snaps more so than Neal. I'm going to get this puppy off the screen there as we go on here. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we've seen so far in free agency, because based on the last video I put out, what we talked about was the front office basically filling your positions of needs on short-term deals at reasonable cost. And that's what we've continued to see since my last video. And the hope being is that we can have enough already in place and what we may add later in free agency and what we can add through the draft to make us contenders in 2024, which is a debatable topic because you can easily argue that the 2023 Miami Dolphins roster is more talented than what we've got so far in 2024. Look at some of these positions. Defensive line, no question. No question at all, 2023 is better than 2024. As of right now, at least, the 2023 offensive line is greater than your 2024 offensive line. Tight end should be an upgrade in 2024 with Jonnu Smith being added. Wide receiver, in my opinion, it's too early to tell. I do think that we'll get some free agent news at that position yet. Wouldn't be surprised if we hit it in the draft as well. So we'll kind of TBD on the wide receivers. Linebackers, I'd argue that at Brooks is a bit of an upgrade to Jerome Baker. That can be debated, but at the very worst, I don't see it as much of a downgrade if you do believe that Jerome Baker is better than Brooks. Edge rusher, that evens out a little bit when you consider that Shaq Barrett just replaces Andrew Van Ginkel. But I say that the 2023 unit is greater than the 2024 unit simply because you got a healthy Bradley Chubb, you got a healthy Jalen Phillips. Cornerback, we've likely downgraded in 2024 compared to 2023 since you don't have Xavier Howard and what's Cam Smith, a huge wild card at this point in time. And then safety is likely a bit of a wash. You could say that 2024 is better than 2023, especially if Deshaun Elliott were to come back, because then you'd have your primary starters and then you'd have Jordan Poyer added to the mix as well. So yeah, 2024 is likely going to be a year where we need a few things. We would need Tua and McDaniel, this offense, to take yet another step forward, evolve to a couple of different things that we haven't seen yet. We need Anthony Weaver to be a hit. We need him to be an absolute hit at defensive coordinator. We need Cam Smith or another boundary cornerback to step up and take that spot from Xavier Howard. And yeah, we need to maintain the edge. We need to maintain that edge until Phillips and Chubb are healthy. So yeah, the things I just rattled off there, that's a lot of things that we would need in order for this 2024 team to outproduce that 2023 team. With all that said, positions I'm continuing to keep an eye on here in free agency. Obviously, offensive line, you got Kevin Zeitler and Dalton Reisner, who remain on the board as free agents from the interior, mostly some guard play there we're looking at, especially with Reisner. Maybe edge still. Interior defensive line obviously remains a need still. Maybe running back as well if they want to kick the tires a little bit. Maybe you do a prove-it deal with a guy like J.K. Dobbins. They were in the mix for Derrick Henry. Obviously, that didn't happen. So maybe you do a one-year prove-it deal with a guy like Dobbins on a Miami Dolphins-like contract from this offseason so far as he comes back from an injury as well. Wide receiver, like we talked about, that's definitely in play. You got Tyreek Hill out here tweeting about adding Michael Thomas. I saw quite a few people talking about and asking for Hunter Renfrow to be added as well. Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, those guys are still options. And then maybe you even still consider cornerback if you want that insurance policy for Cam Smith. Because like I said, that's probably one of your bigger wild cards right now on this Dolphins roster moving forward. A veteran like Stephon Gilmore still being on the market in that situation as well. If maybe you can get him on a reasonable contract to, like I said, be that insurance policy. I will wrap up today's video right there, Dolphins fans. But like I said, got to hear from you. Your thoughts on free agency so far. Drop those puppies in the comments. We'll be back like we've been doing as news happens. We will be back. I'm home now, so things get a little bit easier. So thank you for your support over the last few days of free agency, Dolphins fans. It's been a fun ride, but yeah, I'm glad to be home. Fins up. Until next time, Dolphins fans.